Should we have objects in business process management systems? And if yes, where should they be defined? Hi, my name is Andreas Hense and I make videos on business process automation. Today I'll talk about two questions. One is why we should have objects or complex data types for business process management systems. And the second question is at which level should they be defined? So it's all about scopes. If you're familiar with programming languages, you know what scopes are. So the first time I talked about this question was last year in Shibuya, and I was visiting my colleague Professor Momose-san from Sophia University in Tokyo, and I would like to thank him again for hosting me last year. And it was a really great occasion, and during my stay I thought about this topic and I talked about it the first time in Shibuya. What is the problem I'm talking about? Let's first talk about objects. Many business process management systems have a way of defining your input fields for the forms, for the tasks, by just dragging and dropping, for example, fields into an editor and then give them some simple primitive data types like string or Boolean, date, and so on and so forth. The problem is that if you have more complex data types in real-life projects, for example, a customer or a credit application form or things like that, you tend to have a number of attributes that are always the same, and there's always a point in the process where you fill in the data typically, and then many other points in the process where you look at the data again or you can edit them again and so on and so forth. So each time you change one of these data types, for example, a customer may have first name, last name and address, and you think about adding a birth date, for example, you get the situation that you will have to make that change in every place that this object is used. And this is not only time consuming, but is also error prone. So now that we know why we need complex data types or object classes, let's talk about the scopes. I'll start top down. So the largest scope would be the world. In fact, you can define object types at a global level, and this is done, for example, in XML schema definition, where you have namespaces and you can have global data types that are standardized. The next level is the organization. You can define, for example, your organizational groups, your roles, your positions, capabilities at an organizational level. And after that comes the level of the workflow engine. So you may have several workflow engines running in your organization. They can be all of the same type or different types. And after that is the level of the workflow specification. And the lowest level for us here is the level of the task. So when it comes to defining object types, you can define them in principle on all of these levels. And the question is, where is this useful? What makes the most sense? So I looked at two business process management systems, namely Camunda and YAWL, and looked at which scope they defined their objects. And I'll take my note here. Camunda defines forms at task level, but they should be defined at engine level. Camunda defines users and roles at workflow level, but they should be defined at organization level. And YAWL defines data types at workflow level, but they should be defined at engine level. And YAWL defines extended attributes at task level, but they should be defined at engine level. So the tendency is that these systems define these things in scopes that are too small, and this leads to problems in practice. So we had one project where we had about 30 or 40 workflow specifications, and they all shared the same data types. So what we had to do each time we changed one of the complex data types, we had to copy-paste the data types definitions to 30 or 40 specifications. And while this is still feasible, I think the project was not one of the biggest projects that you could imagine. So it was still, I would say, small to medium-sized project. So if it gets bigger and more serious, then this becomes very difficult to handle, especially if you're working with different teams. As long as there's only one developer, you can all have this in your head, but if you have different teams, then this becomes a problem. So I think there's still room to optimize current business process management systems. So what are your thoughts on this? Do you know of another business process management systems where the scopes are different or better than in Camunda and YAWL? I would be happy to hear your comments. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.